So hello and welcome to this episode of Aim High Awesome Leaders. And I am joined by the awesome Boris Zhukov. Boris is an applied economist. He's a TEDx speaker. He's the CEO of Let You Know. And he is also a former assistant professor at Ball State University. And in Boris's dissertation and research work, he specialized in regression-based models and price imputation methods. And Boris is credited as one of the inventors of Let You Know patents. And we'll come on to that in a moment. But in summary, that is a system and method of matching reverse auction buyer bids to seller offers. And I came to find out a bit more about this as part of my work for Lucid Insight Marketplace, which is a reverse auction buyer system as well, but for research and insights. And so super excited to talk to Boris about how he uses estimation techniques and next generation, really cutting edge technology as part of what he does, which are buyer to seller matching models. And Boris, in addition to all of this, he received a PhD in economics. He has a master of economics from North Carolina State University, and incredibly grateful to Boris for making the time to speak today on some of his work and some of his achievements. Boris, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you so much. Not many achievements. It is what it is. Hopefully, I'll learn a lot from you today. So that's actually my goal, you see. So we have totally opposite objectives. You're trying to get something out of me so I can maybe enlighten you and your fans. I'm actually thinking the opposite, that I can learn from you guys. And that's how life works. So
I love that. Yes. So let's start off. So for those who are new to a marketplace and what it is, so I just want to share with everyone, some of the brilliance of Boris's marketplace and what he has created here. So in terms of Let You Know, as I shared a little bit on, so this is ultimately helping consumers to be, when buying a new car, so typically it can be quite time consuming, stressful and expensive. And what Boris's marketplace is doing is helping new buyers and consumers to bid for a new car. And that goes directly to dealerships, who then, in as little as 5 minutes, can accept a bid, which is incredible. So he's bringing, he's bringing great value to consumers. And also just to note that it says that new buyers can get their car as quickly as 2 hours after their bid is accepted. Boris, this is really exciting. This is a really exciting opportunity in terms of changing what was a perception of buying a car, going to a dealership, doing a lengthy review, having to go to about 5 different dealerships. And I presume as well, Boris, that the requirement for this is both the consumer, but also, of course, your dealer network as well. And can you tell us a little bit more about what's the kind of amazing infrastructure that you have as a dealer network as well as part of this? Is it national across the US?
yes, that is true. That is true. Now, you were amazed by the marketplace that you just described, and it doesn't even work like that. So imagine how in real life, it's actually way better. Because if I had something like whatever you described, I would never use it. Because that's a waste of time. Why do I want to wait for 5 minutes? I'm not a binding transaction at that point. So the way it works is not like this. I can research whatever I like. I can use any online resources. I can go to dealerships. I can do whatever I like. Then when I get my best offer, right, from somewhere, I get my best quote. Like at some point, you will have your best price. I go to Let You Know, and it's instant. It's not like going to the dealers and there is like some kind of process for them to accept. Nope, doesn't work like that. It's instant. It's a yes or no. And if it's a yes, you actually prepay $799 inside your price, which commits you to a deal. And that's why you got your deal, because these people know now you are serious. So it's instant. It's not like there is a lagging effect or like some kind of in a RIA payment that you're going to be all of a sudden charged, like being uncertain. Nope, it's instant. And if it's a yes, that's it. It's done. 2 hours, by the way, it's not a problem. It's not like you have a car ready to go in your office, right? There is no dealership in your office. So 2 hours typically is just for them to prepare your car. You can go to the dealership immediately. Or you can get that car actually delivered to you. One of the buyers, what they did, and to me, the best aspect of this is you apply mathematics to create these matching models, because a lot of people think it's just pretty easy. You just take one price from a dealer and then you take a price from a buyer. That's not going to work, because what's going to happen is people are going to bid low, right? And if somehow everybody are marching towards the same bottom line price and you cannot differentiate those consumers, you're just going to collapse with a lot of demand, a whole market, because there's not going to be as much supply. So what you want to do, you want to actually map the demand surface into the supply surface, then it actually maps correctly, and you don't have a sustainability problem over the long haul, right? Because it actually doesn't collapse or it doesn't crash the market. But the key is you apply mathematics, and then from a consumer point of view, it becomes a process where things are immediate. For instance, this person that I mentioned who bought a car, to me, the best benefit is that I actually save. That's, to me, is the best. I actually dictate the price. We hand controls to the consumer. We say, hey, take back control. Just like in the UK, when you did the Brexit, take back control, whatever that is, right? I'm not trying to be political, I could care less. But I mean, the key is over here is that in a good way, we hand you price controls, you dictate how transactions transpires, right? So that's, but this person said that wasn't even the best part of it. The best part of it is that they did it within minutes. Like, imagine all these hours of negotiating, and yet they got the result that's actually better than them spending a week going through dealers negotiating, because their deal was the best out of all the friends that they actually talked to. Their deal was unbeatable. And but then they had the car delivered to them because they picked ship to me. And what happened is they did nothing. Somehow the car all of a sudden magically appears on their driveway. Oh my God, not only you got your deal, also you did nothing, and here is the car. It's almost like some kind of Amazon delivery package, except you just did it on your own terms. You are the one who named your price. Bam, done.
Bam. Yeah, that's so exciting, Boris. I love that. So
hold on, let me go back. Let me unpackage the real question, okay, that you said about the dealer network. Yes. So we are aggressively actually pursuing all these dealerships across the United States. The end goal, of course, is not the US alone. It's going to be international. That's why we have those patents, not just in the US, but also in other countries. And the idea is that we're also going to scale across different industries, not just new cars. Why not let people bid on the restaurants, right? Let's say you're in London, you want to eat Indian cuisine. Why don't you bid on that? Let's say if you know how much you're going to spend, so let's say it's going to cost you $60 or 60 pounds. You're thinking, you know what, let me bid, let's say 30. And then boom, if it's a go, you got a prepayment of 60 pounds and you just paid 30.
Amazing. Yes. And so you talked in your TEDx talk as well, Boris, about empowering the consumer and some of the things you touched on there. And of course, we live now in more of an age of marketplace. And eBay was founded in 1997. Can you tell us from, in your definition, what, in terms of the inspiration to truly empower the consumer, like how would you, in essence, describe that?
To me, I'm passionate about deals. I love deals. So whenever I buy something at a deal that I believe is the best, it almost gives me wings, right? I feel empowered. I feel happy. You got those endorphins going, happy emotions and all that jazz. So to me, that's the key. I want to be able to do something like this, car shopping or anything else, on my own terms. Because right now, the way it is, it's more, here's a price, take it or leave it, right? And it creates a lot of inefficiencies, which is fine. But the point is, we want to redefine the game for those consumers, because there are some consumers who actually love control in terms of the price that they pay. And they also are passionate about deals. So we are saying, hey, we recognize you. We want to make sure that you have something where all of a sudden, you know, instead of doing all that research, instead of doing all of that, you can actually accomplish the same thing in seconds. So that's the idea behind it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And because I was listening to Jeff Bezos speak, and he said that one of the key things to have a successful business is to focus on the customer, what the customer needs obsessively. And it seems like in your offering, Boris, as well, you didn't focus on competition, what other offerings were out there. You really deeply focused on a good deal and that kind of true sense. And it's really interesting as well, because right now, of course, we're in an age where traditionally in sales, sellers had to strike a bargain. They had to, and you spoke about it a little bit there in terms of negotiation. The deal has to be finalized. And what happens where the two don't meet in the middle? Essentially, you're applying some like really interesting, as you described, patented tech, statistics, and multiple other things to make it simple, but it's actually so it can't go wrong, essentially. So there is a meeting point, and that buyer finds a dealer. And I also noticed that one of the features of your marketplace, and I hope this is still a current feature, is that if there isn't a matching offer, that I believe there was an app and the buyer could then be contacted where a dealer does accept a price similar to what the buyer was going to offer. Is that
so? That's a pretty neat observation. So the way it works is this: so if I submit a bid and it doesn't work, so it tells me right away it doesn't work, I pay nothing, of course, because there is no deal. So then, okay, what happens is push notifications go out to dealers saying, this, like, they have no idea who the buyer is, but to them they just get in this push notification saying like, you missed by that much or by this much or by that much. So then they may actually start adjusting some of the prices, and whenever they go and adjust, it immediately goes back as a push notification to the buyer saying, hey, market conditions have changed, your bid may go through. Now, we don't say from whom, we don't even guarantee this, because, you know, everything is fluid. Maybe those cars are going to be sold the next second, you know. But if, of course, if they are fast enough, right, and they react, yeah, there is that reinforcement from a supply side back to the demand side. Yeah, not
yeah,
exactly a communication, but from a token or from a point of view of information, yeah, that there is definitely something to facilitate transactions, right? To make it even more streamlined, because we don't want to leave a single stone unturned, right? Because that's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for sellers to adjust the prices. It's an opportunity for us to have even more secret hidden deals, right, in our marketplace. That's, at the end of the day, that's the key, right? As people get to know that, you know, all of a sudden they realize they can get deals that are beyond of what they can achieve anywhere else. That's when all of a sudden it makes sense. So that's why a lot of times whenever I see on a lot of innovations, I'm not trying to be like demeaning, but I see, let's say, some kind of programs like food delivery stuff. I'm not going to even call companies by names, but the point is, over there, you pay for the convenience, and there are a lot of services where you pay for the convenience. I don't personally buy it. What's the long-term sustainability? Like, why would I actually pay? It seems to me this is just an opportunity for other companies to come in and just, I'm talking about raise those companies to the ground, because if you can do the same thing without actually charging, so you can find a way, mathematical way of eliminating all those markups, those guys are out of business immediately. So to me, the key aspect is to create some kind of mega monster company, and not monster in a bad way, but in a good way, that actually empowers and creates deals. I believe Amazon, for instance, is a company that does a lot of right stuff, is because the bottom line, they do strive to unleash the supply. They do try. And obviously they are successful, and they remove as many frictions as possible, eliminating a lot of transaction costs, and that's what creates lower prices in many aspects. And so that's really brilliant. It's not like they are saying, well, for that, okay, convenience, we all of a sudden going to charge you. Now, sure, they have the Prime if you want to pay for certain services, but again, you are getting so much for it, right? It's not that you're paying for convenience, you actually get something out of it beyond convenience.
There's other value. Such an interesting point for us. And so really just to land for everyone in terms of what this is and how exciting this is. So effectively the difference is, if people are familiar with using comparison websites, comparison tools, Go Compare, and all the other ones that are out there, and of course there are many, essentially you are taking that concept, turning it on its head, hence the reverse bit, because the buyer doesn't get lost. And of course, today on comparison websites, how many times do probably potential buyers and customers go to those websites, conduct their comparison, and then leave? And who knows if they go ahead with one deal or other. So this is fascinating.
Precisely. And so for us, going back to competition, the more competition there is, the better it is. Why? Because there is more information to the buyers. So that means that you're going to get to the bottom line price much quicker. So then use those comparison sites, use whatever, get that best deal, and then you can go and let, and bid slightly less. And that's the whole point, right? And whenever I say that, for instance, on cars, you actually pay $7.99, you actually prepaid that out of your price. So it's not like a price plus that. It's actually, you're just committed. The key is you become a committed person. That's why you have access to these deals, is because the sellers now know through they're not getting some potential leads and who knows what's going to happen. It's a 100% buyer. Done. Well, not 100%, because nothing in life is 100%, of course. So I misspoke there, but as close as possible. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, so
Yeah, that's
pretty committed.
amazing. Yes, that is so exciting. So, in terms of you was working towards this just a moment ago, I think, but in terms of the demand to supply matching, clearly a car is a certain type of purchase. It's a more occasional purchase. And of course, in the sales world, people will be familiar. Some people will be selling and working in an industry selling very low value, transactional kind of value of goods. But of course, a car is it's a more premium purchase. So, Boris, I'd love to understand from your perspective, because there were supply chain shortages in the car industry in 2023. I think Tesla was famously suffering from supply chain shortages. Can you tell us a tiny bit more about the supply matching and inventory and how your marketplace is solving some of these typical business challenges, particularly for the automotive industry?
Some of the supply side disruptions that you mentioned, maybe not as much in 2023, but definitely during pandemic, right?
Pandemic, yeah,
So
yeah,
2020,
yeah.
those involved a little bit, not exactly as streamlining of a transaction itself, but they were involving aspects pertaining to, let's say, chips and all kinds of different input shortages, that kind of stuff. Because the reason for it is because think about this, you have a well-functioning economy all of a sudden come into a complete halt, right? So all orders stopped, and so they lay off some of the workers, let's say whatever happened. And then agreements were, let's say, breached. And then 6 months later, when people were, or business people were coming back to placing those orders, some of those companies were no longer in business, some of them are gone. So you have to reestablish, right, all these chains. And so obviously that takes time. And also you have an influx of the demand from the producer's point of view, right? Because as soon as pandemic was over, people were back shopping and they were not prepared to deliver as many goods and services, right, as whatever was demanded, because it was almost like a bottleneck, right? I mean, all that time that people were not shopping all of a sudden got unleashed. It got delayed, right, towards later period. And so that created a lot of shortages. Or really the price went up. It's not exactly a shortage, just a matter of supply demand, price went up. And so that's what happened. But anyway, so we won't be able to solve something like that. But now smoothing effect, yes, because then you can plan a lot better. Because if you know that, all right, so let's say you produce that much and you can move it. So that gives you a higher certainty in terms of what you can sell this period over next period. And then you can actually plan your production, right, a lot better because of that. And that, of course, eliminates some of the costs that you would have, including potentially some hedging that you're going to put in place to ensure yourself that you can actually get all that delivered. And so from that point of view, yeah, we can actually get the transactional part streamlined. Plus, of course, instead of wasting all the resources looking for those consumers, those companies are good at producing goods. Like Tesla is not maybe necessarily known for their marketing campaign as much as for their innovations. Then focus on whatever you do best. And so
Yeah.
let companies let focus on targeting consumers to you as well. So that's another aspect. And second, going back to, let's say, Tesla, for instance, they also experienced not just, let's say, some kind of disruptions that created some form of a shortage of vehicles that were available to consumers. They also had the opposite effect. That's why they had discounts recently, is because they overproduce, right? You never can be 100% certain what's actually demanded right now out there. Like, how can you predict with 100% guarantee that at this price, this is exactly how much you're going to sell? You can't, because maybe you can like one time, but perpetually you won't be able to do it. And so what happens is supply reacts, right? Either lowers the price or higher the price or whatever. And so what happens with Tesla? They had massive discounts, right? So we would actually come in. Now, those discounts are affecting their profit margins, affecting their willingness to produce more in the next period, right? Because if you're making less, you may not be as willing to invest and produce more vehicles, right? Because you're actually getting lower markups, because whenever you have those discounts, that's what happens. And so now we say, hey, Elon, not so fast. Why don't you sell as much as you can at those high sticker prices and then clear the rest through let you know? So then, let's say if you can sell at least 30% of those, let's say, cars that right now sitting on your lot, obviously he is not like in business to store it. He's not a storage company. We take care of the rest. You sell as much as you can. So if you can sell 30% without discounting them, you just cap those markups. And then through, nobody knows. When you pass those all the other vehicles, and people bid, and they just map to all these different prices in between, from whatever your price right now is currently displayed to whatever you secretly set on autopilot and let you know, and that's it, and it clears itself. See,
So
and
it's
yeah, and going back to last point in terms of consumers. So there was as we started to get more active in terms of our marketing, so more people got to know it, and some people started leaving us reviews. There was one person who left a review like recently on Google, and it resonated with me because whatever that person said is exactly on point. So what that person said was, Let You Know, originally, that person thought that Let You Know was a research shopping kind of platform, but it's not. He said he realized it was a checkout page, and it's exactly what it is. Whenever you're ready to pull the trigger, you just go and Let You Know, bid less than whatever you find anywhere else, and done. It's a checkout page, which is exactly right. So for people like that person who left that review, it's exactly the last step or the missing piece right now relative to what's out there that this person can utilize and all of a sudden take their shopping to another level, right? And keep in mind, unlike eBay, and again, this is not a comparison, but eBay, I know who the seller is. I have no idea how that seller can price discriminate, and price discrimination is the best profit model there is. Single price is a lot worse. And because if I know the seller, how can they charge anybody a higher price? Because everybody, if they know they own eBay, they're just going to keep bidding, right? Low prices for them. And so you are going against one person. Unless it doesn't work like that, you have no idea who the seller is, and it sweeps everybody. So I bid, it sweeps everybody, and if it's a yes, bam, done. And that person, whoever got matched to you, actually could be trading all of their cars or some other goods and services at much higher prices in public, and they would have no idea that they would actually have, let's say, some of it sold through, and there is no guarantee you're going to be matched to them when you bid on it. It could be anybody, right? It could be any seller of that brand new product.
That's really interesting because the way you just described it, it's not only a service to the consumer, but it's a service to dealers and the car industry as well. And the hotel comparison websites, where sometimes boutique hotels have an oversupply, and again, they don't want to necessarily publicly reduce their prices on their own website, so they would do almost like a mystery offer on a website and just anonymize, make a much lower offer for a room in order to fulfill the sale. And yeah, and really interesting that your system has effectively eradicated some of the kind of lowball bidding that can be associated with a marketplace and bidding style tools.
Exactly. It's like a bid with an instant result. It's a yes or no right away, and if it's a yes, it's done. It's good about this. Any market has its own equilibrium point where you have the supply equal demand. But technically speaking, it doesn't have to be like one equilibrium point. If you have a lot of consumers and you have all these businesses, you can actually have a whole vector of these equilibrium points, and that's exactly what Let You Know is. It just delivers this flow of equilibrium points. That's the whole point.
But in an economically sustainable way, like you mentioned earlier, because again, if a marketplace is just going lower and lower, and that would be risky. So yeah, amazing, really interesting. Okay, we're gonna move on to our next question then. Boris, I am fascinated in that I believe you were thinking about creating Let You Know for some time and working on up to creating it. Could you, because in terms of this podcast, we love to hear from leaders, and of course, I can imagine the leadership aspect of what you did to build this business. Was it as early as 1995? And what started to inspire you around Let You Know and as it has come about today? Like, what was it that really led you on that initial kind of path?
Like I said, I always love deals, right? And so what happened was in early actually 2000, okay, I started thinking about, let's say, some kind of marketplace where consumers would be striking deals. And you're going back to, let's say, hotels. So one example for hotels was Priceline, name your own price. And that's true, it was a secret price, kind of everybody marched towards it. But at the same time, I can figure out exactly what hotel was because they provide you information as a regular marketplace with all display prices. You can see all the drops, you can see the changes, and approximately you can estimate precisely what's going to be the hotel. And it's really that there is no dynamic to it. It's more there's a price, and everybody, they cannot tell the difference between you and me. We're just marching towards the price. And of course, you have quantity demanded exceeding quantity supplied at that point, and eventually a company like Priceline discontinued it because they just figure out what's the point of people wasting time. You can just, let's say, here's the secret price, it's this hotel or that hotel, and that's it. But it made me think that it actually can be applied in the more sophisticated way where there is no way you can guess anybody. And second, you can, let's say, autopilot all the businesses where they can set all these different rules, so create, let's say, this sophisticated structure in seconds, though. It looks complicated whenever you design it, but from their point of view, how they set up all these different pricing rules is going to be really simple. And so that kind of made me thinking, okay, so there got to be some matching model for the supply and demand, okay, to be mapped properly. And then in 2003, let you know.com was reserved. So we reserved the URL. It goes back, way back, right? But then as I was in school, learning about different mathematical tools, different methods, different estimation techniques, it became more apparent to me that I can apply certain things in a way to materialize these matching models, apply to, let's say, new cars or apply to really all new goods and services. So it was an epiphany on my part that I realized that a lot of mathematical tools can be applied that way. And actually, if you think about what is math, at the end of the day, math is a tool, right? It's a language, but it's a tool. What is physics? You just observe what's out there, like stars, etc., and then you apply mathematics to describe all that natural phenomena. And the same as in economics, you observe a lot of different behavior, etc., but it can be empirically estimated why it's happening, what's the root, what's the cause, that kind of stuff. And so you apply mathematics to describe all of that web of different interactions and transactions. And so it made me think, oh, we can actually do this too. And then in 2016, I started assembling a team because you got to have people who are, I don't want to say like you, obviously, they are not. Everybody are different. They're just the way humans are, but they can complement you in many different aspects, right? That's the whole purpose of a team, that you got to have people so versatile that whenever you have different challenges, you can embrace those challenges and you can solve those problems. But the only way you can solve that if you have pretty rounded team that can tackle on those challenges. And so I started assembling the team. And then in 2019, we incorporated in the state of Delaware, opened our home office in Seattle, Washington, and started developing the infrastructure itself. So it took a lot of years. But as far as, let's say, the actual hard start, it was 2019. And then we just started developing the actual product. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what happened.
Amazing. Wow. And I know you mentioned as well, Boris, that you've, in terms of new hires and expanding your team, you've had some really exciting new team members join recently as well. So that's super exciting. And in terms of the academic influence on this, so I believe that you took your professorship partly, is this correct? That did you take it partly to develop Let You Know and your business proposition in those
Well, okay. So academia itself, it's a relatively, I don't want to say it's a flexible job, but in many aspects, it's not exactly 9 to 5 either. You don't have as much rigid scheduling like factor that's typically part of academia. Yeah, sure, you have classes that you have to teach, but it's a lot more flexible. And so that allowed me to explore and start assembling a team. So at that point, it was more like it just, I don't want to say a degree of, let's say, of total freedom by any stretch, but it gave me a degree of that freedom to allow to focus on building the right team for Let You Know and getting a lot of ducks in a row so we can make it happen. From that perspective, the flexibility has paved some way for us to create but was it really my kind of thinking, I'm going to go to academia because it's actually that flexible and so I will be able to just push Let You Know through it? No, it wasn't like that. It just happened to be sometimes in life, right things happen. And that was just one of those choices that kind of facilitated in a way of flexibility because that's how that academic job was. But it was a full-time job still. I had to teach classes. And initially, especially, you have to invest quite a bit because you got to prepare for the lectures. You got to write those lectures. You got to create all these homework assignments and many other things. But as you get better, as you teach more classes, you establish this, let me call it like, you do all your homework and you establish all the materials, like all these different tutorials and everything are already put in place. And then at that point, it gives you the flexibility. And that's all of a sudden allowed me to start building, let you know, from the ground up. So that's what happened.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. So you had that practical vision, but as you say, maybe it accelerated in the
Yes.
later part of your academic time. Amazing. And in terms of, so we've talked a little bit about your journey there and some of the things. What advice would you like share with aspiring entrepreneurs and those looking to create innovation in their industry, be that tech or another?
Yeah, I think it's really tough. That's what it is. Yeah, and it's easy to say you gotta be ready for those bruises, for those bumps. So it's easy to say that, but whenever you're gonna go through something like that, and a lot of companies you're talking about, probably majority of them fail, huge, and even those become successful eventually can fade away too. So the point I guess I'm trying to say over here, it's really difficult, and sometimes it feels like there is no sunshine at the end of the tunnel, just the way it is. But the only advice I can give is that maybe those bumps, that all that blood, sweat, and tears gonna make you a little bit better. And if you don't give up, again, all of a sudden you're gonna reflect back and you're gonna say, "Hey, I created something." So I think from a perspective of creation, forget about success, forget about let's say conventional even definition of success. Maybe creating something and just enjoying that experience is already huge. That's how I personally perceive it. Let's say, sure, someone like Bezos can say, "Hey, I built this company, $1 trillion company, etc." But at the end of the day, maybe by not even building this, maybe you create something even grander than this. They can, let's say, maybe later, maybe 100 years from today, somebody gonna read something about you, and they're gonna come up with something huge that all of a sudden going to change the entire human race for the better. And you wouldn't know this, but the point is you create something, and that value itself, the manifestation of the value, may not be quantifiable immediately. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say in
Yeah.
today's definition of success, but
Yeah.
maybe that's still valuable. So going for the value, going for the creation, going for something that can actually make our lives better, I think that's already success. So let's say when people are trying, I think if nobody tried, that would be, our lives would be horrible. So
Yeah.
it's so my encouragement is that, you know what, take, I don't want to say pride in what you create, but take joy in that you're actually doing something great, something that's beneficial for human race. And from that perspective, keep that in mind, okay, in your journey, to let you maybe persevere through some of those bumps, through those ordeals and obstacles and all kinds of other stuff. And maybe that will help all of a sudden to create, even in today's conventional terms of success, something that will be perceived by people to be successful. But in your own world, you already know it's successful because you create value.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Wow. Yeah, really inspiring there. And Boris, in terms of, so you touched there on legacy and impact being perhaps if it inspires someone else. In terms of pricing and how
Yeah.
much you've learned and know as an expert on pricing, clearly there's a lot of businesses out there struggling with price dynamics, how to approach pricing and offers. In your kind of experience, in your view, again, if you could give like any key advice to businesses in terms of price strategy and some of what you've seen, like what would you share with on that?
I don't want to plug let you know at every single turn, but let you know is exactly designed to resolve these kind of challenges, actually, because whenever you were talking about supply chains that are related to chips and all kinds of technological input shortages, that's not something we can help, but something like, let's say, those little hiccups and disruptions because of pricing strategies is definitely something that let you know excels. That's the whole purpose of the company. So think about this. How is it structured today? So you're the business, how do you determine the pricing? The way you determine is you look at your inventory and you see whether your inventory is going up or going down. So if it's going up at the rate that's exceeding the point of the delivery of your inventory or the point of production of your inventory, that means it's building up, you cannot sell stuff. So that's a clear signal for you to lower the price. If the opposite happens, you increase the price, right? If you sell a lot faster than whatever you can produce, you do the opposite to slow it down. So you are trying to find some kind of this sweet spot. Exactly.
Right.
But and it is dynamic, but the ideal situation would be for you to say, hey, look, I'm going to try to focus to sell as much as I can at some higher price, and then just somehow funnel the rest dynamically, okay, without me doing all these different manipulations on my own, right? That would be ideal. And also keep in mind, a lot of times, any of those discounts that you publicly gonna be disclosing will be firing back against you. You mentioned Tesla. Let me give you an example. I remember I talked to one guy that was over a year ago. I said, I personally predict because this person was like on a high horse about this one single price. I said one single price can only fire back because it means that, what does it mean, one single price? It means that if you cannot sell, you drop that one single price. That's what it means. So that means that you still create those discounts, but there is a bigger effect from it. So I said, look, what I expect is that Tesla will have high depreciation rates. You know why? So whenever, let's say, there is a buildup of cars you cannot sell, you lower, instead of you having that like a sticker price here, right? And okay, they all of a sudden drop it by quite a bit. So let's say some of their units, I believe Model Y or whatnot, they would drop like sometimes 20% or whatnot, right? Guess what? Let's say you bought a car at $80,000, right? You paid the sticker price, you as a consumer, that's what you did, let's say, okay? And a year later, you have a used car now, right? And they discounted that car by 25%. How much do you think you're going to get for your used car if the new one just dropped from 80,000, right? Because now you have one price that got dropped for everybody, right? By, let's say, 25%. In this case, that will be what? $20,000, right? So now it's 60K. You have a used car. So what's going to be the price for your used car? Definitely not 60. I can tell you this. Why would I pay for your used car 60 when I can buy a brand new one for 60, right? So I'm going to pay a lot less, maybe like 45, maybe 40. So that means that in 1 year, because of that one price effect, you created a high depreciation and it just dropped like a rock by 50%. And that's exactly what you see out there, okay? That's the adverse effect of that one price, right? One adverse effect, not to mention there is a whole bunch, right? And the reason is because you have that one price. Now, people like me, or let's say like you, who are going to buy that car, and we look at this depreciation rate that's enormous, right? We're going to think twice before buying that good again, because why would you buy something that becomes worthless so fast, right? You don't want to do that. So that becomes, okay, it tarnishes the image, right? Because if you buy a product that really holds like little value and it depreciates that value so fast, right? You will have no confidence in that product, right? And something like Let You Know will fix this, because then you can actually officially stick to that one price, $80,000. So everything discounts from that. And then you pass anonymously with people just bidding, getting their own deals. That's not because Tesla discounted something. That's just because you got something through Let You Know. And that was just your one transaction that happened to be that way. You see what I mean? And so that's going back into these pricing methods. My point is, something like Let You Know can completely rectify this depreciation, for instance, this high depreciation effect, because we would avoid a situation of that kind from the get-go. Say, just to give you like I can get even more technical to tell you, let's say, even more ramifications, okay, of this, let's say, of the pricing methods that are currently in place that we can solve. But the point is, there are lots of different things, okay, that Let You Know can streamline, and by removing all these different transaction costs, by removing all these search costs from the buyer as well as the seller, and at the end of the day, that's the market proposition. That's why like reliable. And you as a seller, you cannot do that. Tesla cannot do that, because if they did it, they would just cannibalize their own sales. Who would want to pay a sticker price if I know I can bid on Tesla at Tesla? You see what I mean? So you cannot actually do it unless you have something like that secret tool through Let You Know, because otherwise people would just do it through you. They before they pay that sticker price at your Tesla, because they know they are matched exactly to you, they will just bid less. Everybody will do it. 100% of their consumers would be just cannibalized. Which means that that's a problem.
It's a problem, as you say, Boris. And yeah, it's really interesting because in my Nielsen days of insight, we had debates about promotions and losing money on promotions and the
Sure.
difference between everyday low pricing versus, as I'm sure you'll be familiar, but for the audience and those who are less familiar with this, a number of promotions and discounts can be unprofitable. And so essentially, Boris's solution here is that if we have an impartial marketplace, then the buyers are not necessarily just waiting for their next discount and offer, and you're not eroding your margins in the same way for many consumers that
Yes.
you do it publicly.
Precisely, precisely. And a lot of times at the stores, you also have a whole bunch of other costs. Think about this. You go to the grocery store, if they have markups, even those digital coupons or whatever, they still actually post those stickers everywhere. So somebody has to put those stickers, right? That this is on sale. So it actually catches consumers' eyes as
Yeah.
they go through aisles, right? That's a cost, right? That you actually have to print those stickers. You have to put those stickers. You have to employ all the people who are doing all this. But something like Let You Know, you just give the same stuff and somehow you clear all that as if you had those stickers, as if you had those discounts, except officially you sell as much as you can and only discount the portion that you can't, which means that if today you are able to clear everything at sticker prices because people just want to buy it, Let You Know is on pause. So your secret weapon is on pause. But if you can, like, let's say, clear 30%, 70%, Let You Know, 99, 1% Let You Know, and it's dynamically adjusted based on your supply conditions.
Yeah, very interesting, very interesting. And so, Boris, clearly technology has played a huge role in this as well. And I'm sure that you can't share too much on this. I'm sure some of it is patented. But in terms of technology and some of the latest developments as well with AI, like how do you foresee the kind of balance between price strategy, fantastic statistic models, and then of course technology and automation in order to, as it were, optimize what you do and perhaps other marketplaces are doing today?
Yeah, so there are lots of different applications to AI. One of the applications to AI would be like, let's say that we don't even have to have, let's say, customer service. It could actually be completely AI driven. So that's one. So whenever you think about AI, I don't know whether it's actually viable for AI to be an innovator itself. I have not seen that. What I have seen is that what you do is you let AI learn something that's already mastered by us. But
Yeah.
technology does it so well where whenever you have repetitive tasks, it can actually be really, I'm talking about not error-free, but as error-free as it gets, right? Pretty close to it. And so whenever you have those repetitive tasks, or whenever you have something that can be like, let's say, automated, well, AI is perfect for that. In our case, for instance, as we get data from many different, let's say, industries, right? Let's say we're going to be eventually not just facilitating new cars, but also all kinds of other new goods and services. So you have discrepancies. Let's say the name of the product, for instance, could be misspelled from one vendor relative to the next. But when it comes to it would be nice if there is something like AI that recognizes this and just fixes it on the fly. Something where we don't even have to programmatically, like some logic, like some kind of algo-based logic, how to do this. AI does it. So here we go. That's another huge benefit that's obviously can be incorporated into something like us. No, also marketing. When I say marketing, it's the same deal. AI can recognize all the patterns. I think one of the things that the Bezos, at least based on what I've read, recognized is that he looked at some point, they had transactions, a lot of transactions, and they looked at the data and they found that all of a sudden people, even though we are different, yet there are a lot of common threats in terms of how we behave as consumers. And all of a sudden they realize that if you do this and then offer them this based on their shopping habits, based on their past shop characteristics, all of a sudden you can actually get them to buy all these different products, right? And they incorporated kind of AI, except they were analyzing it and then maybe they created the algos to get it done. AI can all of a sudden help businesses that are not necessarily trillion-dollar businesses to accomplish the same objective. That's lowering the cost for businesses, for a lot of companies. And that, whenever people, like, let's say I started this answering this question more like in a negative way, I'm saying, customer service, boom, we can replace that with AI. And so people are thinking instantly, oh, that means that we're going to be losing jobs. But think about this, as AI empowers more and more businesses to include practices that are typically right now are in place with companies that are like these trillion or billion-dollar businesses, but now you can do the same thing with small mom and pop kind of stores, shops. Guess what? That can all of a sudden create more work for those businesses. It will empower more people to become entrepreneurs, right? Because their cost is actually contained by AI, and they will operate like a billion-dollar business without those billion-dollar expenses. And so it creates a lot more opportunities, and you're going to see a lot more people who are going to be in business. And that's the key. As AI progresses, the cost of capital drops, and that means that we're going to have more jobs or more businesses that are being created, more entrepreneurs. And guess what? That means more competition, which is good for consumers. That means more ideas will be materialized, will be implemented and executed in life, which is great. Going back to consumers, it's great for consumers as well as great for people. And by creating more businesses, you have more employment opportunities as well. So here I go.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so the adaptation, it's very adaptive. And like you shared, that brings new opportunities, and we can look forward to a more empowered future for many who previously spent time in menial jobs and roles without much really living into their potential and living into their kind of full capabilities, which is exciting. Yeah.
Precisely. Yes. So lots of good things are in store for us, which is awesome.
Yeah. And Boris, thank you so much again for speaking with me today. So I just have a couple more questions. One is in terms of pricing dynamics. You mentioned the pandemic earlier. In your view, in terms of price change and price situations, like what's the most challenging time that you can remember from a price perspective in terms of a specific price, I'm going to call it a nuance or situation that came up, which was directly related to pricing as opposed to perhaps, or which came about due to changes in market conditions?
Pricing is always, or maybe not always, but it's a result of market conditions. That's the key. So whenever you have any disruption, so you have, let's say, more competition, it affects through pricing channels, markets. That's just the way it works. So let's say if you have disruptions, that means you don't have as many goods and services. That means supply is constrained. And so guess what? That means higher price, and here's your dynamic. The problem with all of that is that it's unpredictable, right? So let's say whenever you make decisions how much to produce today, you do not know what's going to happen in the future. A lot of times businesses try to manage that uncertainty, right? That costs money. And there are lots of different examples of that. It doesn't have to be pandemic. Is just more like something that all of us saw in a pronounced way because we can just see it in real life. But a lot of things, a lot of different, let's say, disbalances happen every day, right? Some businesses, let's say, all of a sudden go to the store, you're going to see some closeout deals, right? Because some company is going out of business. Let's say you're going to see some massive price drops, etc. All of that is an example of some kind of disbalance that's happening for one reason or another. It may not be apparent, but there are reasons for it. And pandemic was, like I said, it was just something that kind of made it obvious because we, in the news, we can see that. First of all, we can see that we were not shopping all of a sudden, then we can see that we're all shopping. Government, of course, tried to help with those government checks to jumpstart consumers' consumption. So that's another thing that you see all of a sudden extra cash on people's hand and they are trying to spend it. And guess what? The result of that is, of course, whenever you don't have stimulated supply, bam, higher price, right? It's just something that's apparent is typically what, but there are lots of disbalances that happen daily. I'm just saying, and there are so many businesses. And so it would be impossible for us to see some kind of common element because all businesses will be different, all decisions are different. And the outcome of those decisions are going to be sometimes mistakes, or not even mistakes, but these like errors in judgment because of uncertainty that's taking place in these transactions, because you don't know what's going to happen next period. I have no idea what's going to happen in 6 months, let alone a year. And of course, all of that creates uncertainty. So going back to your pricing, pricing is just a symptom of something that has transpired prior to that point. When pricing is a reaction. At that point, you are trying to almost think of this as a mitigation, right? You're trying to mitigate the problem and you adjust the prices. Hopefully that will solve or at least fix some of those challenges or some of those problems that arose during the production cycle or whatnot.
Ah, really interesting. And Boris, as you expand and scale, let you know, and as you take it from further and further from its startup time into its next era, what, as a leader and as a founder, how have you found empowering your team to tell that story of let you know and scale and grow? And yeah, what can you tell us in terms of that experience of seeing a company really start to bloom and grow, and just some of the observations you've had as part of that?
Well, there are different things. There is a positive and there is a negative that happens because of scalability. The positive, of course, you have a lot more people who are going to be making money and who are going to be enjoying let you know experience as consumers. For instance, not only people, for instance, would be making money inside the, of course, group, but also we, including me, as other people, we become consumers of let you know. Because obviously, if I'm shopping right now, I would use let you know for sure. In fact, my mom, she just bought a car because of it. Not because of me, but because she got a better deal than anywhere else through it. It's just the way it is. So all of a sudden, because of that empowering effect, all of a sudden you realize, holy moly, I can use that tool to really kill it, to really save money and do it without any cost of time to me, but the opposite, where I don't even have to spend any of that time. I don't have to negotiate. I don't have to do none of that. And then all of a sudden I get the results as if I did negotiate really hard on every single transaction. So that's a benefit, right? Great. Now, there is a negative aspect of it as well. The negative aspect is as you scale, there is a I don't want to say bureaucracy grows, but those bureaucratic red tape processes, they creep in, in daily operational lives. And I don't personally like it. I hate bureaucracy. So to me, that's something that is just going to be like an unintended side effect. And that's something that I hope we can contain as we scale. But overall, obviously, there are more positives than negatives. And like I said, it becomes, first of all, a great company because it does a lot of good for businesses as well as consumers. Second, it elevates a lot of team members who've been with Let You Know for a long time. And then they flourish. They take their talent and apply themselves, and they can see the results right away. That's empowering. And then, of course, you have consumers who are taking advantage of that, and they elevate their game, and they are the ones who are saving money as well, which is huge positive. At the end of the day, that's the key. So if they didn't say it, I would never be even happy making even a cent on that. So what makes me really passionate about this, or I guess really happy about this, is that I actually see real results. I see people leaving us Google reviews, leaving us other reviews. They are calling us, they're texting us, and they're saying, hey, I said this, I say this. And that's only possible because of like, oh my God, that's just empowering to us. And then I'd like to even do more as we scale. I'd like to actually do the autopilot, not only on the supply side, but on the demand side. Imagine that you can actually do all this bidding, but set it and forget it and let it do it perpetually. So you go to the store every single week, but let it bid for you every week, right? So that way you actually have everything prepaid at the store. Think about this. You mentioned hotels. Let's say you go to Japan today, right? You go to Tokyo. Yeah, you can prepay your hotel rooms, etc., but that's about it. But what if you could prepay all your restaurants, all your activities? I'm talking about on your terms. I'm talking about with you bidding your own prices. So that way you don't even feel like, oh, I'm a tourist. I'm actually going to get ripped off whenever I go to Shinjuku or some other area of Tokyo. Or like, let's say when I go to Kyoto, catch that bullet train, Shinkansen from Tokyo to Kyoto, you actually, let's say, got your own deals. Boom. That's pretty empowering, right? So you can actually reserve all of those activities, prepay for all of that at your own prices. Done. Pretty amazing.
That's huge. Yeah, that's a huge application. That's very exciting. And Boris, so finally, in terms of the just to touch again on the leadership aspect, and I know we haven't covered that as much, but in terms of how you had to adapt and perhaps your self-image, how you saw yourself as a leader, has that changed at all over the growth of Let You Know, or has it stayed consistent?
That's a great question. And I think you also noticed that because we're not talking about me being a leader or anything like this, because I don't actually perceive myself as a leader, because I think it's leadership itself is a great concept that a lot of people love to talk about. To me, if somebody considers me to be a leader, it's more like an incidental one. It's not exactly purposeful. I could care less to be a leader. It doesn't really matter. I just have a goal, and I want to make sure that a lot of people are benefiting from it, including our shareholders, including people who work for us, including our consumers. We love our customers. I want to make sure that all of those people are extremely happy. All of our businesses that do business, do their transactions on what they are happy. So to me, that's a bigger role in terms of all of that to make that a reality and make it a sustainable reality. As far as, let's say, the leadership role itself, I could care less. So it doesn't really matter to me. It's inconsequential. In fact, as the company grows, I just hope to be like my ideal kind of like scenario is to fade away and just develop the tools, mathematical tools, as we go and work on science-based, right, aspect of let you know, and do what I love, which is, again, developing different mathematical models. I'd love to take on the tour, maybe go to different, because I came from academia. I would love to go back to academia to give those seminars to people, not even to charge. I'm not here to charge anybody for anything like this. I'm just saying, share my knowledge, share my experience. And the key is share some of the methods that we developed. Like I said, I mean, whenever you think of patents, that means that, and we have multiple, that means that we actually invented something that has never been invented. And I'd like to share that as well with the world. I can say, hey, look, we did this estimation, we did this. And so there is a scientific aspect of it, and there is also a business aspect, which people love as well. Students can learn from it. They can combine science and business into one, a more unified concept. And I hope that's actually going to be something that people will take back into their lives, and it will make them grow, maybe, or facilitate their growth, something like that. That's, to me, that's what I envision myself, not exactly as a leader. Now, you did, okay, broach on one point that's excellent, okay, in terms of what changed. Something that I think initially that I did learn, maybe not initially, maybe it took me quite a few years, but it's one thing you have to learn is that you have to recognize that people are different who work with you. And for you to maximize the return, you have to be not exactly like a micromanager, but the opposite, and yet kind of stay this cohesive glue for all these different elements, but recognize different situations and how people are different and give them space to flourish, to create what they are trying to accomplish in their, daily lives. And I mean, that's something that I personally learned, because before it just never occurred to me, because I was never in that position where I had to, let's say, have a team to do something over the long haul, right? Like, it's one thing to have it just for a day or a week, another thing where you have to accomplish certain objectives months after months, a year after year, that kind of stuff. And I did learn a lot by interacting with a lot of people within a very demanding environment. And I recognized a lot of, for instance, I'm a person who'd like to push just to keep working all the time, but some people are not like that, and you have to recognize that, and you have to be effective. You have to be able to capitalize on that, but on that knowledge, and then let that person do what they are doing, because they are better than you at some other aspect of, let's say, different skill level. And so that recognition, I don't think it has been with me from day one. That's something that I did learn over time. So I don't know whether this is because being a leader or whatnot, but this is because I work in a team environment with a very demanding set of objectives that had to be accomplished and continuously have to be accomplished. So that's something that helped me to get better and recognize those differences. I don't know whether it actually answered your question, but I hope so.
It did. No, that was great. Thank you, Boris. That was a really interesting answer. And yeah, I would just like to say thank you so much again, Boris, for speaking with me today. Thank you for joining. And how can people let you know? How can people get in touch with you? Tell us more about how to reach you.
Yes, great question. Of course, letyouknow.com, let you know one word, and follow us on YouTube channel, follow us on our TikTok and X, former Twitter, as well as Instagram and Facebook accounts. You can find me on LinkedIn. Of course, Let You Know is there as well. I think I'm Boris. My middle initial is A, is Alex, and then which Alex's middle name, and then Zhukov, my last name. I mean, or you can just type in something like Boris TEDx, maybe that will pop up. I don't know. Or people can just type in Google, name your price cars, you're going to see, let you know, go to About Us, you're going to see me, you're going to have my email, and then find me on LinkedIn, find me on Facebook, find me on the X, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. You can follow me on all those channels as well. Everybody are welcome. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you again, Boris. It's been such a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you so much for all the amazing knowledge and insight that you've shared today. Really appreciate it. And please do tune in to this episode, and everyone make sure you do give Boris a follow. Reach out if you want to see more of Boris's journey. And of course, we'd let you know. We can tell that big things are coming. So watch this space, everyone. And yeah, it's been exciting to speak with Boris today about his venture. Thank you, Boris.
Thank you, Camila, so much. You are amazing, and I love your questions. It was great to be on your podcast. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Boris. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Have a good one.
I'll just stop the... Okay.